Alright, today we are going to be talking about writing choruses. Sometimes they'll be called hooks. That's the common terminology in rap, but it means the same thing. And I found this list online, and I don't know how accurate it is. And I also wouldn't classify every song on here as a rap song. Like, for example, Heartless, I guess he raps a little bit on it. T-Pain is definitely not a rap song here. I'm not saying he doesn't rap at all. I'm just saying that this particular song does not involve any rap from what I remember. But if you go through this list and look at every single song, the ones that definitely are rap songs, and I really consider it a rap song if all three verses involve rapping. If it's only the chorus that involves singing, that's fine. I still consider that to be a rap song. But if all the verses and the chorus are all singing, like for example, Buy You a Drink by T-Pain, that is not a rap song. But you can go through every single song on this list, and I think there's only one out of the 20 that actually has a rap chorus. So the obvious lesson that you want to take away from this is if you're trying to sell records, you're not going to want a rap chorus. You're going to want a singing chorus. Now that being said, not every chorus is meant to be a hit single. Really, your goal should be to figure out what story your track is telling. Your goal isn't necessarily to make a top 5 pop single. If one of your goals is to have like a really aggressive rap track, then you may or may not want to sing on the chorus. For example, the song The Motto by Drake, I can't imagine that song having a singing chorus. It was very rappy from beginning to end, and it was kind of like a classic rap hip-hop flex. So above all else, always remember that when you're writing lyrically, you definitely want to match kind of the vibe of the track, and you want your melodies and your delivery and your beat and your cadence, everything to all kind of mesh together and tell one particular theme. So we will be talking about some rap choruses, but right now I want to talk about singing choruses. Number 1, play to your strength, because if you cannot sing, you're probably best off if you do not sing. I have heard way too many rap songs that get ruined by people that just cannot sing. At the end of the day, everyone has their own lane, and that's completely fine. One example I can think of is, say, Lupe Fiasco. He is not a singer, yet most of his songs have singing choruses. But what you see is he normally gets somebody else to sing for him. So that's the second point here. If you can't sing, then find somebody who can. And you can write the song, you can write the chorus. Number 3, remember the journey. Recall what I said when I was talking about music theory. When you're writing a melody, you kind of want to start somewhere, and then you want to kind of take it to a different destination, and then you always want to bring it back home. It's also a good idea to layer and experiment. Now, when I say layer, what I mean is to record vocals on top of vocals. You can add in harmonies, which we also talked about in the music theory video. And really, the best thing to do is listen to music that has lots of harmonies in it, and hopefully you can pick up on how to write harmonies. But the other thing you can do is experiment. Sometimes a good idea is to chop up vocals, and I'll show you an example of that in a little bit. Now that could also be a good idea for a pop chorus. It probably wouldn't be a great idea if you're doing an acoustic song where you're trying to get kind of a live vibe. However, if you are writing a pop chorus of some kind, always remember to have repetition. That's something I probably shouldn't even need to tell you. You know how repetitive songs on the radio are. Another thing you could do is kind of a call and response technique, where you're singing one part of the line and then you have another line that's kind of singing back. And I'll try to give you an example of that in a moment. Now, I'm assuming that you watched the video on delivery, and the concepts of projection also apply when singing. The slight difference is it kind of depends on the song itself. So if you're doing an acoustic song, something that's really low-key and mellow, then it's perfectly fine to not project very much. Normally, you'd probably want a pretty good microphone and a pretty good setup. That way, it will sound like it is not overly quiet or overly monotonous. However, if you're doing like a pop song or any type of song that's really more energetic, you're going to want to project your voice, whether you're doing rock or pop or any other type of genre. So you have to be able to, at least moderately, be able to project your voice while singing and sing loudly. But again, that depends on the type of song you're making. So one thing that I hope people took away from that delivery video, and it is a very important concept, is that the best idea is to write while recording. Now, I really want you to think about this for a moment. If you're writing down lyrics, the whole point, the purpose of writing down lyrics is you're trying to preserve this idea that you have in your head. But when you're doing something like recording, you're doing more than just lyrics. You're doing melody. You're doing rhythm. You need a way to write all of this down. Number 1, so you don't forget it. Number 2, so you can make sure that when you listen to it back, it sounds the way that you picture it in your mind. So that is a massive, massive point that I think will make a major difference in your performance as a musician, that I think will make an immaculate difference in your songwriting skills and your overall performing ability. So that's kind of what we're going to do right now. I'm going to open up Reaper, and there's a couple things I want to do first. The first thing I want you to do is go on Google, type in Grylon 2, and then at auburnsounds.com, we're going to download this VST. Now, essentially, this is autotune. You might not need autotune. You might be an amazing singer. However, when you're writing your songs, it's probably a good idea to use some kind of pitch correction. Because if anything, it is a sanity check, and it can make sure that when you're writing your music, you're staying in a certain key. So right now, we're not focused on making a completed recorded product. What we're focused on right now is writing by recording. So once you download this, you'll want to unzip it. Now, I'm using WinRAR. You might possibly have to download WinRAR yourself. Maybe not for this one, but for the next one. But here, I'm using Windows. I'm going to go ahead and install. Now that all that is installed, I'm going to go into Google and type in Epic Verb, all one word. So this particular link took me to kvraudio.com, which is a really great resource for anybody making music. If you want to know more about recording, they have all kinds of VSTs. This is an amazing resource. So definitely know about this form, register. But for now, I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to download. And this takes me to the Variety of Sound website. And to be honest, I really only want one of these plugins, but I'm going to have to download all of them, I think. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. After that's all done being downloaded, you might have to unzip it, and then you'll have a file kind of like this. And for the record, I did say I only want one of these plugins, but really all of these are really good. You should definitely check them out. These EQs, I believe this is a compressor, reverb, this is some kind of distortion. I've used a few of them in the past before, and they're really good, so definitely check them out. But for the sake of this video, I'm only going to be installing Epic Verb. For whatever reason, this is one of the few that is an actual WinRAR file, so you might need to download WinRAR to unzip it. You can download that here at rarlab.com. Download now. I'm not going to walk through that. But after you're done installing WinRAR, you can just right-click and then go to Extract here. So really what I'm looking for is this right here, this DLL file. So I'm going to right-click and copy. Now this is a VST just like the other ones we've installed. The only difference is we kind of have to install it manually. So I'm going to go to Reaper, go to Options, and then go to Preferences. And if you scroll down here to where it says VST, these are the different folders where the plugins are being installed. So for example, right here I have C, Program Files, Common Files, VST. So I'm going to navigate to that folder. Notice that they're separated by a colon. So this is a completely different folder, but either one of these will work. Likewise, if I wanted to install it in this folder right here, that would be fine too. So if you go to PC, then go to Program Files. In this particular case, I'm not doing the 86, I'm doing regular. Again, you would want to go based off whatever directory they have highlighted right here. So for here, I have Program Files, Common Files, VST3. So here's Program Files, Common Files, VST3. Now you'll see I already have it installed. I'm just going to right click and then paste and then replace. For me, I already had it installed, but you probably won't need to. You can just right click and paste. So now that all that is done, what I want to do is click on Clear Cache and Rescan. Click OK. So when I click on FX, and if I type in GRA, hopefully you'll see Grylon 2 right here. And if you open this window a little more, you can see like the drop-down box here, which is all the presets. And then I'm also going to add in a reverb. So that was called Epic Verb. I'm going to type in Epic. So these are all the knobs and such, but they have the presets in the drop-down box here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on S Vocal Straight. And by default, this is considered 100% wet. I've talked about this before. We're going to set that to about 10%. All right, so I have this beat that I found on YouTube, and I have a vocal that I recorded. Now, let me start by saying, first off, I am not a singer. But whether you are or are not a singer yourself, you might have some capacity to sing. And even if you're an amazing singer, what you should realize is that when you listen to music on the radio, a very large amount of that has some kind of auto-tune or other pitch correction on it. You might not hear the auto-tune because you can apply different amounts. When you listen to somebody like T-Pain or some of the rap like Travis Scott, they turn the auto-tune up intentionally because that is a sound that they're going for. But you can also apply auto-tune or any other pitch correction program and only apply enough of it that it's barely perceptible, that you can't really hear it. But real quick, I've got some vocals and I recorded over this beat. This is a normal little melody, nothing impressive about it. I just want to kind of illustrate a couple ideas.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long.
Alright, so right off of the bat, that was the vocals without any type of auto-tune. There were some effects. In fact, if I open this up here, I have a compressor going, an equalizer. This is a maximizer. I actually did download this, so it is an external VST. Everything else, I had you download Epic Verb and Graylon, and then I installed Rough Rider in another tutorial. The EQ comes with the program. So nothing here should really be new. For example, the reverb that I have, there are some presets involved. I didn't really do anything other than I picked a preset, and as I've told you before, you can adjust how much of the effect you have. So just for example, let me go ahead and solo this. I'm going to turn the reverb all the way up. So as you can hear, that is a lot of reverb. If I come back here and reduce it to like maybe 10%.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober.
So you can tell the reverb is there, but not quite as much. And that's kind of the same idea with auto-tune. You can either have a lot of auto-tune or only a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this to my vocal. So nothing is really different here. If you were following the workflow video, you would put in your instrumental and then you would record your vocals and then you would go into the FX track. You would just add the reverb here. You can select any one of these presets and then, obviously reduce it and listen to it so you know how much to really include. You would add your compressor, you would add your equalizer, but then here I'm adding on my auto-tune basically. Now, it's not actually auto-tune. This is actually kind of a free version. You can use auto-tune, but they actually charge money for it. So I figured, if I'm trying to give people a tutorial, why not, do a free one? There are already other things in this tutorial that you would be better off spending your money on. So one thing you do need to know is what key your beat is in. So if you make the beat yourself, you should hopefully know because you made it. However, if you don't know what the key is, you'll have to do what I do, and basically you just play the instrumental in the background. And if it sounds like the note is out of the key, then clearly it's not that note. And then you kind of just have to do a process of elimination to figure out which key it is in. Now I already did this and the beat to me sounds like it's in C major, so that's what I'm going with. So I've set my auto tune. You can just click on the preset and obviously you can pick one of these majors or minors. I'm going with C major. Now if you're like me, you're using the trial version, so a couple things are disabled, like I can't do anything with this and I don't think I can change anything on here. Also, I really hate the fact that this is so small, but it has something to do with how big my screen resolution is and I'm just too lazy to change it right now. So real quick, we're going to look at this button down here, and essentially it has a fast and a slow speed. So more or less it's kind of how much of the autotune is being applied. Really it's how fast it's being applied. So if you turn it all the way up, it won't come on very quickly. I'll go ahead and play it right now.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I put my heart down on your broken shoulder. I throw my faith out, I've been colder, colder, colder.
Alternatively, I could have turned this all the way down so it's now as fast as it can be, and you'll definitely hear more of that auto-tune effect.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older.
So what else is pretty cool about this is I can kind of change the pitch. So let's say I turn this all the way up. It's going to sound a little comical, but what is kind of cool is that when you're writing, it kind of lets you not focus so much on your voice. It almost, to me, sounds like, somebody else is singing. That way I can make sure that if I like the melody because, it's a good melody, not because I've been listening to my own voice way too much. So I'll go ahead and play that for you. It will sound very Alvin and the Chipmunk-like. Alternatively, you can also make it sound really deep. But that's a little bit warbled, hard to understand. I'm just going to go ahead and put this back and make sure that when you do put it back, you have it all the way at 0 exactly. One thing to note is if you hold down Control and click on this and drag it, it will move in a smaller interval. So you have a little bit more control over how much you're moving it. It's really hard to land directly on 0, especially when it's as small as it is on my screen right now. And then there are other ways to limit how much of the autotune you have. Right here you can see the correction is either off or all the way up to full. So you could turn it on to off or, kind of halfway. I'm just going to leave it on full for now. I'm going to move the smoothness back to, I don't know, here. Another interesting thing that I don't think they have in Auto-Tune, they have this inertia button. So if I were to actually turn it up, it actually kind of jumps all over the place as far as melody. I'll let you hear it.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I'll put my heart down on your broken shoulder. I'll throw my faith out, I've been colder, colder, colder.
And the reason I really like that, so first of all, even though it is shifting all over the place, it is still keeping it in C major. But the reason I really like that is because if you're writing a song, it kind of just lets you listen to the melody and be like, okay, this particular note sounds good on the beat. For example, there was one part in it where it was like, sober, and I could try to make a melody around that if I wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and turn off the inertia for now. So real quick, I'll play this one more time. I have a little bit of auto-tune, but it's not all the way up.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older.
Now you might notice there's a lot of space in between each line, so what I could do is add in a delay. And there are effects like all the others where you can just add in a delay. You can also download some online that are probably better than these. However, you can also do it manually, which is what I like to do because it really gives you more control. So what you could do is right-click and then duplicate this whole track. So what you could do is move this around wherever you want to and then line it up so that it's still on rhythm. So I've already done that with this track right here. All I did was take these vocals right here, copy them, and paste them into here. I cut out the beginning part so it's not overlapping too much. And if you wanted to do weird effects with your delay, you could definitely do that. All you would need to do is go to this channel in the FX and, you can add all kinds of weird things. I pretty much have all the same effects. So real quick, I'll go ahead and play this, and you can see it sounds a little bit fuller just based on the fact that I have a delay.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I put my heart down on your broken shoulder.
And for the record, if you really wanted to, you could honestly just record anything. You could record yourself singing out of key. If you put on a lot of auto-tune, it'll automatically put it back into key. And you can always kind of accidentally find things that sound good and then kind of use that as your motivation to come up with an interesting melody or an interesting chorus. So I was projecting a bit when I sang this.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober.
However, I also did a recording where I'm a little bit quieter, so I'll let you hear that.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I put my heart down on your broken shoulder. I've thrown my faith out, I've been colder, colder, colder.
So that take was quieter than the other one. And what you could do is you can layer them onto each other. And for clarification, this video is really just to talk about things that you could do. Not everything is necessarily going to sound good on every beat. So really, you want to listen to the beat, listen to the chorus, and do things that sound good to you. But another thing you could do is record 2 times, layer them on top of each other. So as you can see, I recorded this version right here, and then I had this other version up here. This is the one where I projected more, and this is where I did not. So you could layer these on top of each other like that.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older.
And also, you can mess around with the volume knobs. If you want to make one louder than the other, you can just, change the knob. Another thing you can do is add in harmonies. So for example, I added in some harmonies here. So I'll let you hear what it sounds like without the beat or anything.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older.
I also have another copy of the same thing. This is not a copy per se. I did record the same thing twice.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober.
Let me go ahead and switch to the other vocal here, and I'll go ahead and play the harmony, the vocal, and the beat all at once. Everything else is muted.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I put my heart down on your broken shoulder. I've thrown my faith out, I've been colder, colder, colder.
And when you're writing your harmonies and everything, you can also try to use auto-tune to help you out. So for example, I have this harmony right here.
I'm one one day sober. Oh, I'm one day sober.
Let me go ahead and go to Graylon. I can add on the inertia. Let me go ahead and turn up the volume of the harmony.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older. I put my heart down on your broken shoulder.
So again, that just allows you the ability to hear what different notes all sound like together, and what it all sounds like over the beat, and what it kind of sounds like when you're, doing a harmony over your voice. So all of those things are really useful to have when you're writing a song. An alternative to using the inertia here is you can move things up by the pitch shift. However, here's the thing. The maximum is 12, and the minimum is -12. What that means is that is 12 half steps. So rule number 1, if it's at -12 or +12, it'll still be in the same key because it's just going to be 1 octave higher or 1 octave lower. However, if you start moving things up by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, then you can very well be out of key. So here's a quick example of that.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober.
So you want to make sure you're moving this in increments of 1, not like 1.5, 1.2. Just make sure you're moving in increments of 1, like 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. And if you actually look at a piano, you can know what notes you're kind of playing, but you have to know where they started out. Either way, this is something really just to play around with. Move it up, move it down, and kind of listen for, happy accidents where things, turn out well. Shout out to Bob Ross. So I have a couple more. These are just more harmonies that I created. Let me go ahead and mute this.
I'm one day sober. We've been apart too long, but don't get older.
I'll let you hear the harmonies by themselves, but what's important to note is that obviously they are a different melody.
I'm one day sober.
For example, these two.
I'm one day sober.
You can compare that to these two.
I'm one day sober.
And you can tell on this one, I just basically took the auto-tune and pitched it all the way down, so it's down an octave. And then that's a different melody from the main melody, which is simply like this.
I'm one day sober.
So what I want you to take away from this is if you record while writing your melody, it's a good idea to use auto-tune. It can help you make sure that your melody is still in key. Because if you write something that is out of key and you sing it and then auto-tune corrects it, either one of two things. Number 1, the melody that you wrote is out of key, or number 2, you picked the wrong key when you were trying to figure out what key the beat was. Either way, it's some kind of mistake that you made. But it's good to have a sanity check, right? If I write this melody and auto-tune doesn't change the melody itself, that means that it's in the right key. One other thing I wanted to point out, you have this beat that is in C. So the tonic is C, and if you would actually play this melody that I wrote, the very last note is also a C, just in this one line.
You tell me don't go home, I'm one day sober.
So that's kind of a reiteration of what I was talking about in the music theory video. These are things to think about when you're creating melodies, but you don't always have to rely completely on the tonic. I wouldn't focus too much about that when writing your melodies. All you really need to do is make sure that you have auto-tune turned on, make sure that you have the correct key, and if you sing pretty much anything, play it back, listen to what sounds good. And whatever sounds good, make a melody out of that. Make a chorus out of that. But it is a good idea to kind of have, a path where you're building up to something. Maybe you have like a climax and then you return back. But again, don't focus too much on that. Focus more so on just doing what sounds good. Alright, so here I have a different chorus that I just threw together. And again, not an amazing melody or anything. Definitely not amazing lyric, but something I just wanted to use to illustrate a point. So here's kind of a call and response, and what that basically means is it kind of sounds like it has two parts, where one is giving a melody and then there's kind of a responsive melody. So for example, here's a call.
I don't need to know you.
And then the response comes like this.
No way!
So it's just kind of a technique when creating a melody or for a chorus. You can think about having two parts where there's a beginning melody and then there's a response to it, which is a different way to kind of create a melody. Alright, so I'm going to turn down the auto-tune a bit and I'll let you hear what it sounds like.
I don't need to know you. No way. Never gonna make it. Okay. Crawling into bed now. I love the way. I know you've been on to me. Baby, I don't care who you wanna be. All the Cape Town girls are living on the corner. Cape Town girls are living on the corner.
one thing I wanted to point out real quick, I do have one little harmony going on here, so you can hear what it sounds like.
Don't care who you wanna be, all the Camptown girls are living on the corner.
And all I did was what I told you. I, kind of recorded myself singing the song, and I kind of threw on that auto-tune and turned up the inertia, and I kind of heard something that I kind of liked. Sounded kind of like this.
All the Camptown girls are living on the corner.
Now keep in mind, this is not the auto-tune with the inertia on it. What I did was use the auto-tune with the inertia on it to come up with a melody, to listen to something that I thought sounded good, or sounded like it had harmony with the original melody. Then once I found that melody, I recorded myself singing that melody. The way that this melody kind of popped in my mind, I had this really long drawn out part here, but I also wanted to, kind of jump in while this melody was still going. So I had to record a second part right here. And because the recording was so loud, I needed to kind of fade out the volume here at the end so that this would be a little bit softer. But some other things you can do with any chorus really is kind of do a beat cutout. And that will also kind of make it sound better sometimes. It really depends on the song, and it depends on the chorus. For the record, this would be a lot harder to do if I had a tracked out beat, but you can press S, and that'll split it into 2 different files, and then you can kind of crop away some parts right here. Alright, so I kind of timed this in a way that makes sense, and I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. Just, pay attention right here where it cuts out.
I don't need to know you, no way, never gonna make it, okay, crawling into bed now. I love the way, I know you've been on to me, baby, I don't care who you wanna be. All the Camptown girls are living on the corner, Camptown girls are living on the corner.
So that's kind of a technique that you can do. And you can also do that with rapping, and I'll kind of point out some examples of that. And something else you can kind of do is just kind of chop up your vocals and play around with them. This is one example of like a million different things I could have done. But for example, I cut up this part where it just goes Camptown.
Camptown!
And basically, again, you split it and you crop it, so that's the only part. And then you can copy and paste it. Then I cut it out. And then you can kind of keep copying and pasting the same thing. And you can press Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste like that. But literally these are all the same audio file. Once you have your audio file recorded, you can kind of chop it up into little bits and pieces, and you can always do interesting little things with it. So I threw this together. There's no real rhyme or reason to it per se. I just thought it sounded good.
I don't need to know you, no way, never gonna make it, okay, crawling into bed now. I love the way, I know you've been on to me, baby, I don't care who you wanna be. All the Camptown girls are living on the corner, Camptown, Camptown, Camptown girls are, Camptown girls are, Camptown girls are.
That's just me having fun. But really, that's why I make music. I enjoy it. And doing weird little things like that, can always be a good idea because, you can always stumble on something really cool. So hopefully you get the idea, write your melodies using auto-tune. It'll definitely help. And even if you are an amazing singer, you might want to put a small amount of pitch correction on your vocals. I keep wanting to say auto-tune, but it's actually Graylon 2, so let's give them their proper credit because, this is their product. They put work in to make it. And I have used auto-tune before, and I do think that there are some cool features to this that auto-tune does not have, especially if you buy the full product. But it's always a good idea to write while recording. The lyrics here aren't great, but I didn't write any of this stuff down on paper. I just, started singing some stuff, and whatever came out of it, came out of it. And that brings me back to what I had said before, if you were to do what I did and write maybe like 100 different choruses, for sure, you would find one that is really good. I only wrote 2 here. If I kept on writing more and more and more, eventually I'd find one that I think is probably pretty good. Most of these are just me messing around, but, they give me some ideas already. So definitely experiment. There are lots of different things you can do. You can always record yourself. You can record your vocals and then record again with an octave higher or an octave lower. You can record with harmonies. You can record the same thing but with, emotion and no emotion. You can just record the same thing twice, for whatever reason, and kind of pan them out differently. There's all kinds of things you can do to try to make your vocals sound more spacious. You can add in harmonies and it'll be fuller. So hopefully you learned a little bit and you have a better idea of how to approach hooks, especially ones that involve singing. And in the next video, we will talk about rap choruses. I probably won't do this whole thing where I'm recording them, but I'll just kind of point out some things in rap choruses that you can do. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. I enjoyed making this video. I definitely enjoyed making this because I was able to put a little bit more of myself into it. I had a little bit of fun. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep making music.